during this time of becoming a mother, this can also be a time where our nervous system gets really disorganized, our identity gets shifted.
A lot of the times the reason we get dysregulated is because there's things in our psyche that we've been dealt with, whether it be trauma from our childhood, because essentially when we become a mother, we're reliving our childhood, right?
This suppression of the anger, the suppression of the emotion, the suppression of the trauma, the experiences could also be trapping illness.
Be upset, be angry, be sad, and just let yourself feel that. Because I think we numb out as mothers to hold it together for our kids. Women beat ourselves up left, right, and center. So what do we do as mothers? I'm not a good enough mother. I didn't breastfeed enough. I didn't get my kid to dance on time. Those thoughts have to go somewhere, and they go into the body.
Welcome back to the What About Mom podcast. I am so excited. I have a very special guest here today, Dr. Divi, who is a former family doctor turned intuitive coach and spiritual teacher. She brings so much light and love and specifically works through women and mothers and has affected my life. I've had the honor of being able to meet her personally and be in her experience. And so I am excited for her to drop in with you today. So welcome on, Dr. Divi.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for having me. And thanks for doing this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think, just to kick us off, what is an intuitive coach and how did you go from being a family doctor to then becoming a spiritual teacher in that process?
Yeah, it's been a journey. So an intuitive coach, I always say we see, sense, feel energy. And so when you're connected to our guides, our divine support team, our angels, clients come in with or see me in classes with questions or things that aren't working for them. And what using intuition does is it helps me to gain access to what their thought processes are that's causing the dysfunction in their life. And using intuition basically moves through stuff much quicker than just counseling. And then using spiritual knowledge, universal laws and all that stuff, I can teach people how to heal the story that's in that neural pathway so they can live the life they want to live. And experience miracles and have fun and have joy.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. That's definitely something that I've really been leaning into more over the last few years myself. And honestly, since I became a mother, I feel like that was sort of like my initiation into the more spiritual world and really diving deeper into my intuition as well. How did you go from being in like the healthcare system and that more patient facing? Was there a moment in time that really awoken you into that? Or I'm so curious. I'm like, what was it for you that really made that shift? Was it a gradual evolution to be able to support others more in this space?
A bit of a gradual one, but I'll sort of try to describe a journey into shorter terms. So I got really sick when I started working as a doctor within a couple of years, like chronic pain, amongst other issues. I have a TEDx talk on it. And then through things like yoga and meditation, I was gradually getting better. And then I'm pretty type A, so I went off and learned how to study yoga or teach it. And then I went and opened a yoga studio. I was almost running away from marriage. And then during the yoga studio years, I got pregnant 21 years ago. And that's when my intuition went right up. So when you said that, I'm like, yeah, that's what happens. Pregnancy is like the birthright, the birthplace for intuition for a lot of women, because we need to know when our kid is sick. We need to know when our kid isn't doing well. That internal knowing has to be part of our repertoire. So my intuition went up when I was pregnant. So I already kind of left medicine, done the yoga gig, and then came back to medicine after yoga because I had to do something work-wise. And then I started the intuitive coaching business on the side because I had done a number of intuitive trainings after I had my son. And then that started this business. That was about 17, 18 years ago. So.
Yeah. Okay. What you said there of like the intuition, kind of the initiation during pregnancy and that peaking during that phase, I can relate to that, of course. And I'm sure so many mothers can here too. I always say like mothers are magic and miracles, just like there is magic in all of us, of course, but specifically mothers that go through that process and go through that portal and that birth experience, there's something literally ignited in us.
Totally. Yeah.
I know you dive even deeper and have lots of, great wisdom and belief systems into why women specifically are really needing to lean more into that nervous system safety, that are needing to get more connected to themselves again. I also know that during this time of becoming a mother, this can also be a time where our nervous system gets really disorganized, our identity gets shifted. And a lot of times when I'm working with mothers directly, our team is working with mothers directly, we're just really going through a lot in terms of identity shifting and finding out, quote unquote, who we are again. What would you say to that mom that is feeling maybe dysregulated? What are some tools and strategies that she can bring to herself so that she can kind of come more centered and come back to herself?
Yeah, it's a great question. A lot of the times, the reason we get dysregulated is because there's things in our psyche that we've been dealt with, whether it be trauma from our childhood, because essentially when we become a mother, we're reliving our childhood, right? So a lot of us haven't worked through the shadows from our mother, our father, society, patriarchy. And so when those wounds come up and you're in that state of dysregulation, you're breastfeeding, you haven't slept for years, it's actually set up. So really start journaling, get in touch with a coach, start working with somebody, know that what you're feeling is real and it needs to heal. But a lot of us heal from this place of blaming, and we stay then as the victim. That's only part way there. Then you got to go full circle, which can take the rest of your life, right? And can take a few years, decades. Don't worry about it. But for a while, be upset, be angry, be sad, and just let yourself feel that. Because I think we numb out as mothers to hold it together for our kids. Especially if we had trauma, we want to have a great childhood for our kid. Good luck on that one, right? And one other thing I would add is really know that the soul of this child has chosen you for your good and your bad. So that soul of the child also, even if it doesn't look great in your mind, has chosen you for those icky things too. So, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I feel like there's just in that one sentence you said, there's so much to unpack there. And this is something that you also said when I was with you in person, is like our children actually chose us to be their parents. And that really eliminates us and takes that victim blame mindset away completely when we realize like our children actually chose us to be our parent or our, parents first, but then we chose our parents as well. And would you speak a little bit more on that? Because I know that can be kind of a foreign concept. People are like, excuse me, what? Like, I don't know if I agree with that. I'm triggered by that, which is all real as well.
Yeah, I totally respect that. So if you really understand this work a little bit deeper, we understand that the soul never dies. It's the ongoing nature. And that's part one that we need to understand if we're open to it. Of reincarnation, our soul is going through this growth phase. So, one of the first growth phases of the soul, and the soul comes back hundreds and thousands of times before it stops its reincarnation cycle. But one of the first growth phases in the young soul is constant blame and victim energy. Great, right? And then you'll graduate from that to maybe taking a bit more ownership. Then you'll graduate to that to connection to the divine. Like there's different phases. So you might bring in Joe as your baby, but you don't know where the soul growth is for this child. Got it? Often when I used to deliver babies, you could look at a baby and say, this is an old soul. Like you could just see it in their wisdom, in their eyes, in their face. That means the soul's here for something different, right? And then if I take it a little bit deeper, a lot of people don't understand that soul, say, is a massive up-leveling of, say, not being victimized is this level. So they have to experience victimhood to overcome that, right? And so hopefully that doesn't sound too deep, but it's understanding that the soul has a different imprint that actually is why it chose you and all your crazy crap as to why they chose you. And you won't know it yet until you're a little bit older. And if you don't figure it out while you're alive, you'll figure it out in the minute you die. So if you study near-death experiences, you realize that when people die, they see their entire life and they understand everything in less than a second. So, that awareness, there's nothing wrong happening is really hard for people to hear, but really knowing that there's no mistake is a big thing. And, I chose my crazy father. You chose your crazy mother. We all did, right? But that's part of the work.
Yeah. I've seen that in myself and many friends as well, of like, if we lean into that process and we're willing to accept that too, and being detached from this person doing that to me, we actually get to like lean in further and say, why did I choose this parent as, the person who's meant to guide me? And what is that teaching me? And how am I leaning into that further to bring those gifts, that mission forward to be able to serve the collective too? The other thing that you said that I think was so powerful was during that transition with pregnancy, postpartum, intuition, you mentioned like being angry and frustrated. And a lot of these things can bring up triggers from our childhood. And especially, you know, I always say, if you want to go through the largest personal development experience, have a child, because it will literally trigger you and bring up other things that you suppressed so long ago that are somehow coming back up inside of you. And one thing you mentioned was mothers are sometimes are afraid or unwilling to maybe allow that anger to come through or allow that frustration to come through. And we stuff it down because we have to be the good mother. We have to give the, you know, hold this weight of the responsibility to give our children the best experience that we possibly can. Do you believe, part of my belief system, maybe I'm curious yours, is this suppression of the anger, the suppression of the emotion, the suppression of the trauma, the experiences, could also be trapping illness in our bodies and can be leading to a lot of some of the chronic illnesses that we're seeing, or why women are experiencing chronic illness, autoimmune conditions at these alarming rates. I'm curious your perspective, just from your background and your intuitive and your spiritual teaching side of things.
Oh, 100%. I'll answer in a little bit long way, so just bear with me. There's something called an emotional scale that Abraham Hicks talks about. Most people have heard of Abraham Hicks. They're the teachers of the law of attraction. So if you glance at their emotional scale, you'll see on the bottom, the lowest emotions are powerless, victim, grief, guilt. They kind of shame. They all go hand in hand, depression, anxiety. And they're not wrong emotions, but look at society. 95% of people walk around in those emotions all the time. And then if you go up the scale, the next big jump is anger and rage. And at the very top is love and joy, right? So you can't jump from the lowest one to the top. And what is an emotion that a lot of women avoid is rage and anger, right? Because we have to be good girls. We have to hold it together, and so on and so forth. So if you don't let yourself feel anger, what the typical mom does is we're multitasking, we're driving kids everywhere, we haven't eaten, we haven't peed, and then out of nowhere, we're driving in the vans full of kids. We turn around and the kid's going, "I have to pee, Mom." You're like, "I have to pee." And then you turn around, you yell because you've just had it. The anger is a way of releasing that. And it feels better for about a microsecond. But then what happens is we go right back down to guilt. We're like, "I'm sorry, I should be better as a better mother." And so we stay in that shame guilt spiral. We go to anger a bit, but we stay down here. That's one part. Second part, if you ever go to a hospital and actually do what I do for work and feel energy, the dominant emotion in a hospital or a walk-in clinic is guilt, depression, powerless, victim. So you have to know that there's a match between those emotions and illnesses. And the last thing I'll say, because you brought up autoimmune is the body fighting itself. I've never met, like, if I had to compare men and women beat ourselves up left, right, and center. From the time we're about 11 years old or younger, I don't have a size 2 body. I don't look pretty like the girl on the cover of that magazine. Just that thought is beating us up. Autoimmune is beating ourselves up. So what do we do as mothers? I'm not a good enough mother. I didn't breastfeed enough. I didn't get my kid to dance on time. Those thoughts have to go somewhere. And they go into the body. And the fear in the work I do is the autoimmune is you beating up on yourself and then staying in that spiral. So yes, my long answer.
I love your long answer. And so when you get to anger, what's after anger, so that we need to release the anger so that we can come up on the hierarchy scale, right?
Yeah. So after you move through anger, if you've ever actually let yourself feel anger, it doesn't have to be at somebody. It could be at a boxing gym. It could be getting in your car and screaming. It's healthy anger. Then what people will typically realize, they'll have this feeling where it's like quiet after the anger. It's like, oh, I feel better. And it's like brief, but it's there. Then the more spiritual development you do, the more work you do, this is going to sound a bit weird. In my world, it's not, but in a lot of people's world, it is. You eventually realize the only reason you're actually angry for anything is that you're angry at yourself, but the only reason you're angry is because you forgot that you are the perfection of love, that you're a miracle in a body, that you're the divine I am. That's the only reason we get angry. Or we take apart, somebody said, "I'm angry because I don't have money." Well, actually, you're angry because you forgot that you could create money and you are the source. Well, I'm angry that my husband beats up at me. You're angry because you forgot that you're a child of God and no one can hurt you and that you are a source. And so when you actually get to the bottom of anger, go to every angry thought. At the bottom, you're only angry because you forgot you're the divine. Once you realize that, that's where forgiveness comes in. Got it? And that's where I can forgive myself. Forgiveness is not, "Dad, I forgive you for hurting me." Forgiveness, by A Course in Miracles definition, is returning to the place in your mind before that thought existed. So I'm going to forgive myself for ever thinking I wasn't enough. Then I'm enough. Forgive myself for ever thinking I was a loser. I'm not a loser. So I'm going to that place before that thought even occurred. That's forgiveness.
That's what so many moms need to do on a daily, probably hourly basis, especially. I
Every
mean,
second. Yeah.
every second, right? Because it is so, that cycle, you can get stuck in that, right? And
Oh,
then you can have to snap yourself out of it, because if you do it for long enough, it becomes a habit. And then in order to be able to reverse the habit, we actually have to do the hard work of being aware that it's even present. And then what you're saying too is like the awareness is there. Oh, now I'm aware that I'm in this chronic guilt shame cycle. I'm aware that my thoughts and my behaviors and that cycling goes into victimhood. And then I feel guilty about it. And then I feel shame. And then I get angry, but then I go right back to guilt and shame again. And so what I'm hearing, and I hope all moms are listening right now, is like, it is so healthy to be able to feel safe enough to release the anger, to let go of the anger. Because until we not only address the deeper causes of why we're feeling that anger, but then we release it. And even I've done myself like these rage screams, or, been guided through in breath work or whatever it might be, you release the anger. And then it's like this crazy softening and surrender that happens immediately after. And then the hierarchy explains what joy and peace and love.
totally. Totally.
Oh my
And
gosh.
one thing I would say for somebody who's a beginner, because I'm seeing this picture, if you're newer to this, it's like, oh God, I can never do that. It doesn't take forever. And I think we can both speak to that. I know for myself as Divi, it probably took me 6 months or a year to really, really get comfortable in anger. But then it changed my life. Like
Hmm.
I can't remember the version of Divi who existed before that, because she was just a doormat. And
Doormat.
she lived
Yeah.
in shame, and she lived in
Mm.
guilt, and she lived in chronic pain.
Hmm.
And so that 6 months or a year was worth every second. So
Yeah. Yeah. And when you say you got comfortable with your anger, what does that mean exactly?
so I wasn't, if I'm an overgiver. I'm East Indian. Guilt and sacrifice are like the middle words of being an Indian mom.
Mm.
So if my son asks me at 3 o'clock in the morning to make cookies, I used to, and I'm not joking when I say that. I'll roll out and I'll go pick up chocolate chips because it's 3 o'clock in the morning. It's Christmas, whatever. And then I'd be like, I got comfortable with saying, dude, it's 3 in the morning. I'm not making you cookies right now. You're going to be fine. And just that ability to vocalize that, not even through getting angry at him, just the vocalization. But getting comfortable with anger, I took up boxing, and I took up like getting in my car and screaming and things like that. And I just let myself. And I got very comfortable with, if I was angry at my husband, I had to train him to realize I'm actually not angry at him. He's just a safe base for me to yell right now.
Mm.
So don't take it personally. That took time, right? And then, moving the anger out of my body was things like boxing or working out hard or doing things that just let it move, right? But so on average, I go boxing, but once every 2 or 3 weeks now. I used to be like twice. It used to be almost every day with my boxing gloves on. But that was just the technique I use. It could be breath work, it could be screaming, it could be whatever. So yeah.
Anything to move the energy, anything to release. Yeah. Yeah. Especially with, our line of work too, and so much of it being physical, right? Like we also believe too, like that physical release, that physical action of moving, whether it's walking or exercise or boxing or whatever it might be. It's no wonder that there's so many emotional and mental health benefits just also through physical activity, because we can't separate them. They are together, right? The physical movement is the energy moving, and then that naturally allows our mental and our emotional state to feel a little bit, oh, I feel better when I work out. I feel happier with my kids. I yell less at my kids when I exercise. Like all of those things are byproducts of also moving that energy through our bodies.
100%. I couldn't say it
Yeah.
better. Exactly.
Oh, amazing. And so also one thing that I want to kind of bring back is the self-esteem aspect, right? Why do you think that women stay so stuck in that lower self-esteem piece? And if someone is listening right now, that's like, wow, that is me. I am staying stuck in that guilt, shame spiral. What do you think that they should do? Or what could they tell themselves?
Everything is just a thought. So we can either think thoughts from the ego thought system of separation and fear, or we can think thoughts of love. And what we don't realize, the thoughts of love are there, but they're this quiet little whisper. You are beautiful. You are incredible. Okay? And at first you're going to laugh at that and go, no, that's not true. Da, da, da. But just be open that it's there. And if you can quiet your mind, even just like a little bit, then you might start to hear that whisper. And that whisper will change your life if you're willing just to start. Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Would you say the whisper is also our intuition?
100%. 100%. Because your intuition will never say, you're fat and ugly.
Right.
Your intuition will never say, you should have gone to the gym, you idiot. You've just really woken up. You've put that on yourself. And the more we put that on ourselves, the more we believe it. And then we get hooked on Netflix. We don't get off the couch. We eat cheesecake. I've done that. We all have. Mm-hmm. But it's in this moment, am I willing to shift this thought? And it literally is moment to moment to moment to moment.
Yeah. And you bring up a great point of like, it's a choice, right? Because we can get stuck in that neural loop that tells us we should just eat more cheesecake. We should just sit on the couch. We should think that we are not the right size or whatever it might be. But it is that awareness of that conscious thought and then deciding to shift it.
100%. 100%. With everything we've been taught. And one last thing I'll say is because a lot of your listeners have kids. I always say to people, would you ever talk to your kids the way you talk to yourself? Right. I'm sure you've said that to your audience before. It's such a powerful statement. Like I would never say what I say aloud in my head to my son. Ever.
Yeah. Yeah. And allow ourselves, like, especially as women, we put up with so much with our bodies too. Like these issues that we're having, or whether it's pelvic health or strength or autoimmune or just anger, frustration. These are things that we just put up with and people please around, right? And we just want to make sure everybody else around us has what they need. And then somehow moms come last. So part of my work, I know your work as well, which is so beautiful, is really empowering women and mothers to know that they are worthy of change and they are worthy of making those efforts to change those neural feedback loops, and that they can come first in some aspects as well. It doesn't mean that motherhood doesn't equal sacrifice. It absolutely does. Yeah. But it does mean that, mothers can start to feel more empowered. What are some ways that you feel that women right now or the collective can really kind of tap back into that piece if they're in a really moment of feeling disempowered, they are having a trouble time advocating for themselves, and they're in that space?
Right. First, I'd say give themselves a break, because we have to recognize that we're millions of years into patriarchy, and patriarchy is not a wrong system. It's just a system, right? It's a system that we have bought into. So when I say there's something wrong with my body because I'm not a size 6 anymore, I'm feeding it to the patriarchy without one little thought. Mm-hmm. So it's like, don't beat yourself up if you're in that powerless loop. Don't be mad at yourself. Just go, oh, every grandmother before me for 10 generations probably thought this thought. So fine, no surprise, I think this thought. Not a shocker. And because COVID represented the shift to the feminine, and I'm on the planet now post-COVID, so my job is to gently start to shift that thought. My job is to realize I'm not this body. And if I think there's something wrong because I'm not a size 6, I got to be okay with that because I'm not this body. I am much more than that. I am just love. I'm a vessel of love. That's what I'm here for. That's why. And one last thing I just say, because it just came in really loudly. I think as women, I'm sure you've talked about this on your podcast before, we medicalize childbirth. Oh my God, there's nothing more spiritual than childbirth, nothing more magical, nothing more than a miracle. We grew 20 toes and 10 toes and 10 fingers in my body. That is insane. Mm-hmm. Like we minimize it, but we want to dance to the power of the feminine. Mm-hmm. And the power of the feminine will never, ever doubt ourselves.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so powerful. I completely agree, and definitely talk about this often. Is like the, pregnancy and postpartum is a portal that we are entering, that we get to enter, that we have the honor of being able to enter. And it's so sacred and so beautiful. And it's etched every single mother that I've ever talked to is completely transformed them on the cellular level. And we have to continue to look at birth in that aspect, that it is straight magic. It is miracles right in front of our eyes. And to think about like how this vessel and this body grew life and birthed life, and now we're nourishing life. Like that is like magic and miracles, right? That is exactly what the feminine is here to do. And you said something, you're like, post-COVID, feminine, there was the rise. Will you dive into that a little bit more and what you mean by that?
It's, in the spiritual world, they've always written stuff at such and such year, this is going to happen, blah, blah, blah. But the Divine Mother is the energy of the feminine, the mother energy, that when patriarchy started was still here on the planet, but was forgotten. Mm-hmm. And they always said in the 2000s that the Divine Mother would start to rise. The Dalai Lama has often been quoted, but the only thing that will save this planet is the feminine. Okay? So that was always talked about, okay? That the feminine was going to rise. Now, if we look at what COVID did, and I'll just go on to a couple of things, a bunch of things. A lot of us work from home now, right? We now can make income. Look at this internet thing. I grew up in a time when you had to go to work, right? There was no such thing as internet for, those are all feminine things, right? They're all feminine things to be able to stay home, to be with your kids. Another feminine thing, and I work with high level CFOs, like I work with 6, 7, 8-figure income businesses, and they hire me because the work I do to help their companies grow. Every one of those companies will tell you, and they're all male executives. They'll tell you that they can't create money like they used to before COVID. Mm-hmm. How we create money is no longer going to be the hustle. And if we come back in 100 years, we'll see more people aren't going to be hustling. They're going to be through the feminine. The feminine does not hustle. The feminine receives. So the mother came very strong onto the planet around COVID to say, no more. And that's why we're having this uprising right now. And that was also like Weinstein and all that junk that went down with that all of that stuff was actually timing. If you think about it, all of it happening right now with this Diddy stuff, it's all because of the feminine uprising. I'm a child from the 60s and 70s. That didn't happen then. Does that make sense? It's just shifting.
Yeah. I see it. I feel it. I can relate to that too. And I think too, for our listeners, some understand the differences between feminine and masculine and some don't. So would you dive in a little bit deeper and making sure people understand too, feminine doesn't only mean female and masculine doesn't only mean male. And then I think we also will have this deeper understanding too of the rise of the feminine that you're talking about, of that softening and that balance that we really need as a society.
Yeah, definitely. So if you ever meet Divi in person, you'll see that I hold a lot of masculine. I always joke, I went to medical school when I was 19. I have a lot of masculine. Okay. So that feminine is more the nurturing, the soft, the receptive is the word. Okay. And that's the intuitive, the creative, that's the feminine, the allowing, right? And if any of your listeners have listened to Abraham Hicks' The Law of Attraction, most people have heard of Law of Attraction. One of the pieces around Law of Attraction is allowing. That's a feminine thing. Got it? Law of Attraction got really big in the 2000s, 2010s on purpose because it's a rise of the feminine. The masculine, if you get to know me, I have a lot of masculine. And I know a lot of men that have a lot of feminine, right? So masculine energy is more like steadfast, holding the vessel, not just grounded, but sturdy, often called protective. Those are the masculine. So you have both sides. We know a lot of men that are so feminine. They're not just gay, right? They hold a lot of feminine and they allow things to occur and they move things with grace. We know a lot of women who move in the masculine. It has to be this way, it has to be this way, it has to be that way. And so those are the two definitions that I tend to use. And we have both. But in general, society has always poo-pooed the creative, the intuitive, the artistic, the receptive, the allowing. But that's what's rising. That's what's rising, is that feminine side.
Yeah. And I can so relate to you as well. I think that, previous to having children, very heavy masculine for myself, right. Order, structure, control, moving things forward. I'm in charge of my own life. I'm going to make this happen. Very type A. And then having my first son in a very unexpected way, was planning a home birth, ended up going through 3 days of labor, ended up having a C-section, this whole experience that completely cracked me open and had me surrender. And then it became my body of work after, right? Which was so divine. Now I'm grateful for that. I was very angry at the moment.
Oh, 100%.
Right. But I think that experience of becoming a mother was what allowed me to bring more of that feminine side in. But of course, being a business owner, it is so challenging, and it can be so challenging. And a lot of, modern day women who are also working and caring for kids, it's so easy to jump right back into that masculine side and have the order and the snacks and all the things that we need to do. And so I love that you're saying like this healthy balance is important, and like the difference between not all women are just only feminine. We have both, but also being aware of those tendencies and then being able to lean into maybe the opposite. Because I definitely have been working really hard to lean more into the receiving side of things as well.
Yeah, it's like I think a lot of women have the control because we're afraid,
Hmm.
right? We like want our men to be a certain way, want our kids to be a certain way because it creates safety. And yet the feminine is so powerful. It's so loud right now. I'll say it that way. The feminine can bring you miracles a dime like in like 1 second that could take you 100 human hours to create. So what if you do lead into that feminine? What if you do not try to control every second of your life? Are you open that, hey, what could be possible? And we don't even realize we do it. We don't even realize, like, it's so deeply ingrained. In fact, I'll tell you a funny story. My husband and I started pickleball. Just a funny story for your listeners. And, we're playing yesterday and some lessons and whatever. And the woman I was playing with is all women and my husband. And the woman kept saying to me, he's not following the rules. I'm like laughing inside because my husband's a bit of a rebel sometimes, right? So he's not following the rules. And I'm like, wow, this is so fascinating how you at 55, 60 years of age need to follow the rules because that's so masculine, right? We don't ever realize that we do it until it bites us, like at childbirth, right? After the hospital, right? So I love that story.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. I think it's interesting to be aware of that too, like of the people that are in our lives and the way that our tendencies and what those might be too. I've noticed that myself. It's like it's so important to like lean in and letting that go and letting that nurturing side come through us. And sometimes, maybe you're pregnant and you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I'm scared. No, it's a good thing, right? Like whatever is going to come through is divine. And I think you said this earlier that actually really resonated with me too, is like everything that comes for you was exactly meant for you. And that can bring a lot of peace to people that have had, trauma or have had terrible things happen to them or went through really hard experiences. And I think it is staying present to that of like, this came from the creator. And so it must be divine. It must be meant for me. And I know initially, like, I didn't believe that. It's like, nope, I don't believe that. I'm just going to be angry. And I'm so mad that happened and that's not fair. And so I'm just going to ignore that. Right. And I feel like the more that I actually have done the opposite and have just received that and been like, well, that is interesting. Right. Utilizing that. Oh, I'm curious about that. That is interesting that happened. It must be for me. And then all of a sudden you can hold that more centered, grounded space for moving forward. Tell me more about that. Like, would you kind of expand a little bit more on that statement that you made earlier?
Sure. It is a paradigm shift for a lot of us. And so don't feel like you have to get it tomorrow. But it's like if we can soften into the experiences that just occur in our lives and start to understand a bit about metaphysics and spirituality, then we're no longer a victim to everything that's happening, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a journey because a lot of us are raised, in fact, I think almost all of us are raised, that we have to go out and create our life and push and push and push. But when we actually start to do a bit of spiritual work and understand metaphysics a bit, we're like, okay, I create my life. I've heard that dumb concept out there. I create my life. Dumb. Don't like the fact that a car just cut me off in traffic. But then if I look at the energy dynamics behind the car cutting me off and where I'm at, there was a lesson for me there. And that's kind of the deeper digging, deeper work. And the more we dig there, the more peace they can come. Mm-hmm. And then peace, it's not like, we want to be victims of our life, but it's like, okay, maybe this icky thing happened, but there's a learning here. And just that little thought changes everything. Just that little thought that there's a learning. It totally changes your experience. Versus this horrible thing happened to me. I had a miscarriage, this bad thing, we just go down a rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. But if we can be open that there's a bigger picture here, then let spirit lead you. And then everything changes.
Yeah. It's having that faith that it all is meant to be and it all is divine and it all is meant for our learning if we're open to being able to receive that too. And you said pause, right? I think that's the problem for a lot of us, just the collective, right? Is we're so busy, go, 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 fast, fast, fast. It's like the pause is actually what we need to be able to break that cycle. I know you do a lot of work with meditation and teaching people to be present in the pause. do you feel like meditation might be that first step for people to just start getting comfortable with that pause and to quieting their mind a bit more?
100%, because the mind just runs us like 40 to 60,000 thoughts a day, right? So if we can have that little, because the mind just is constantly reacting, and not responding. Responding is, let me respect myself and take a break here. Let me not have a knee-jerk response. Because then, I think both of us are, have been in relationships. And I know with myself and my husband, I could write that. We've been together so long, I can write the fight that's going to occur from one little look out of the corner of the eye. If I don't want that same fight to occur, I have to learn to not react like initially. And that's where meditation can quiet that knee jerk, and then I can start to heal the knee jerk. So yeah, it's meditation is the first step. And a lot of us are scared of meditation because we have to quiet our mind. But I always say to people, there's only two ways to live life. One life, like you're constantly reacting and being miserable, or there's a joyful life over here, but it's a journey. It's a journey.
Yeah.
And one of the first steps is meditation.
Yeah, I like how you say it's not easy, right? I think, and when you're busy, and the person who needs the meditation is the most, who thinks you don't have 5 minutes to meditate, like, oh, I don't have time for that. I can't meditate. Or I've heard that a lot, even when we've tried to give our clients meditations. They're like, oh, I just can never meditate. I just can't do it. And I'm like, you might be the person who really needs the meditation the most if we're unable to find 5 minutes to just sit with ourselves. And I think that's it, right? Is like, it is the discomfort in the pause. It is the discomfort in the waiting, if you will, and feeling and sitting with ourselves.
And what I think happened for myself was, it was like I would have insights in those pauses that I would never have had when I would just think. And when you have one insight that is pretty life-changing, then the other insights start to come. And so that's where the pauses get addictive, right? And so at first it was like, why would I bother? Why would I bother meditating? And I totally get that. You can read all the studies in the world and all that kind of mumbo jumbo and think it's just crazy shit. But at the end of the day, if life isn't working because I'm constantly running, let's try a very different approach. Why not? People talk about it all the time. So.
Yeah, I think more mothers need meditation for sure.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Well, I feel like that's a really great segue to like the work that you do. Would you share a little bit more about the work that you do and how people can find you and how people can access more of their own intuition and learn more about the spiritual teachings that you offer?
Somebody tells me, what do you work to? I don't know what I do. So I work as an intuitive. One of my biggest passions in the work I do is around the feminine and having women realize their power. And, some of my work is moving into like helping heal control and anger that as women we often feel a victim to. Some people call it narcissism. Some people call it like abusive relationships, put whatever word you want on it. But so a lot of my love or passion is helping women to step out of that. You can find me on drdivi.com, drdivi.com. I also teach people to wake up their intuition and so they can tap into their guides. And I have like a free school community, which is SKOL. I'm sure you do. School community. I have tons of free stuff on there. But yeah, it's like you can work with me one-to-one. I'm currently full with that, or in classes. I do group coaching and lots of classes. So yeah, those are kind of my offerings. And my big thing is helping women and men, because the suppression of the mother also affects men, because men feel like they have the burden of like the financial thing, and I got to take care of everything, and I can't show my emotions. So lack of the mother also affects men. So I work with both women and men.
That's so powerful. Thank you so much. And I think if you are in this moment, like listening to this, and maybe it's like above your head, or maybe it's right where you're at, I think that the only and next best step is just to continue to learn and to continue to grow. And so if you're getting that inkling to see, maybe I should learn a little bit more about my intuition. Maybe I should learn a bit more about meditation. Maybe I should learn about how to release my emotions, my anger, so that I can get to that surrender and peace and pause. I definitely recommend you check out Dr. Divi and all of her amazing resources. I know you offer so much, but obviously being with you in person meets anything like anything online. So if you do see one of her retreats and you feel called, I absolutely put my blessing on that as well for you.
Oh, thank you, Jessica. That's so kind of you. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Well, it was so great to have you on, Dr. Divi, and we'll make sure everyone knows how to find you and take the next steps to continue to grow in their intuition and learn more about themselves so they can continue to return to themselves as women and feel empowered and divine, just as you said.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.